far, Governor Lamont has not banned indoor dining, but earlier this week he was joined at a COVID briefing by a doctor who wants him to. She is among those health professionals who signed a letter to the governor citing indoor dining as a leading source of spreading the virus and asking him to put it on hold.
Joining us this morning, Dr Manisha Juthani, associate professor at the Yale School of Medicine, who specializes in infectious diseases and epidemiology.
Good morning, doctor. Thank you so much for joining us. You have said we really just need to buckle down for a couple months. Can you define that?
First of all, thanks for having me, Juby and Kevin. I want to highlight where we are in the status of this pandemic here in Connecticut right now. We really crushed that first wave and we all had a little semblance of summer. But the winter time is the absolute worst when it comes to respiratory viruses. We know flu and other respiratory viruses always transmit more at this time of year. And that's exactly what we're seeing with COVID-19. And because we don't have great therapeutics, we know that our hospitals are building up with patients. And indoor maskless activities, indoor dining being just one of others as well, are high risk events. What we know is that even with restaurants doing the best that they can, and I'm on the side of the restaurants here, they're doing everything they can in terms of cleanliness and spreading people out. Despite that, your mask is off for a prolonged period of time. And this is an opportunity for those sitting at your table and potentially based on air currents in a restaurant, other tables as well. And that's why I did sign that letter. But I also want to just highlight that there are other indoor activities that occur if your mask is down that can be high risk as well.
We were all braced for a spike in the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. Has what has happened met your expectations?
I think it's still a little bit unpredictable. So we have seen a rise in cases. I certainly have heard of instances where families, for example, 22 people got together and everybody has COVID now in that family. There are certainly instances like that. For the last several days, our hospitalizations have been relatively level, which I'm happy about. If anything, if people have heard what we've been saying, which is that if you have transmission like this and then you go see older loved ones, that is extremely high risk in terms of what you do. So I don't know if any of that has had any help in terms of flattening of what we've got, but I also would say we have not seen all the consequences of a Thanksgiving potential spike. Because again, you might have younger people that get infected in those first 7 to 14 days in terms of what's visible to us. However, how that percolates through friends and family and eventually ends up with those who are the most vulnerable and then end up with us in the hospital still remains to be seen. So I don't think we've seen the full play out of the consequences of Thanksgiving just yet. I hope it stays at the level we're at, but I can't say that that will be for sure.
So the window may be wider than we all expected in the run-up to Thanksgiving.
We certainly think the 2 weeks after Thanksgiving is where the transmission of what happened at Thanksgiving itself might be the highest. However, we all know that our circles are beyond that. And so how that affects those that might be more vulnerable within our circles, unless you're really sticking to the guidance that has been, advertised for months and months now in terms of how you should maintain distance and masking, that there's still a possibility for a potential spike beyond. And as we know, there are people who work in settings where there are vulnerable people. And if vulnerable people get exposed to this virus unknowingly from others, you potentially could still have a rise.
Doctor, healthcare workers are likely to be receiving vaccines this week. Can we talk generally, though, about vaccine hesitancy, which if you ask random people, are you going to take the vaccine? Are you excited about the vaccine? I'm a little surprised by individual concerns about it. And how do we overcome that?
The first way that I think we can overcome this, we know that healthcare providers are going to be some of the first offered the vaccine. I will absolutely sign up as soon as given the opportunity. I want people to know that the science that has gone into this vaccine development has been decades in the making. There have been other viruses where this has been experimented with in the laboratory, and the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which causes COVID-19, was just primed and ready for this particular mechanism. And so it is years and years in the making that has allowed, and the scientific prowess, quite frankly, throughout the world and in the United States, that has allowed this vaccine to come to market in such a short period of time. So I know there are a lot of conspiracy theories and others that are out there. What I'm hoping is that if people like me and other leaders, both in government and beyond in our communities, take this vaccine and people see that we do well with it, that they will eventually buy on too, so that we can get to herd immunity in a safe way, not in a way where we're just letting this virus rip through our communities and putting those most vulnerable at risk, but in a safe way through vaccination.
That's very reassuring. There are likely to be more than one type of vaccine that's approved by the FDA. Does it matter for the average person which one they get, or should they just get the one they can get soonest?
I would say take whatever is offered to you. So far, we've got 2 vaccines that are, very close to distribution. Beyond that, there are probably going to be another 2 that are in line. It seems that the data that we're seeing out of those is very strong as well. But I think at this point, we have many more people than the number of doses of vaccine that are going to be available. I would take what you can get. So far, they all seem to be telling the same story, which is that they are efficacious at preventing COVID-19 and severe cases of COVID-19, and that they are well tolerated. And at the end of the day, what people should remember is, if you've heard of long haulers, people who have been fatigued and can't walk up a flight of stairs, people who used to run marathons before that, who wants that? Is that the quality of life that you want to take a risk with versus a few small adverse events in the short run? For me, it's a no-brainer. And I would take whatever vaccine becomes available to you when you're offered.
Doctor, thank you very much for joining us. We certainly know more than we did a few minutes ago. We appreciate your
Thank you for
joining us.
having me.
When Face the State returns, unemployment has soared during the pandemic, leaving many unable to pay rent and landlords unable to make mortgage payments.
We'll talk about the impending eviction crisis when we come back.